Oh, 1 second. Hello, YouTube. My bad. We have a little bit. Okay, there we go. I fixed it. Sorry about that. I tried to fix something and I ended up making it worse. Hello, YouTube, and welcome to DM Writer's Room, a show where we here at TTRP Guide demystify the DMing process by live creating monsters, adventures, locations, all kinds of stuff. Occasionally settings. What?
I thought you were gonna say where we lie. Welcome to TTRP Guy, where we lie.
No. So we are just about to get started. We talked about what we wanted to do for today's stream, and we've settled upon making a sort of monster menagerie. What are you laughing about over there, Chuckles?
I'm looking back at our stream replay. I'm observing it. You're good.
It's the meanest thing you've ever done. Is I'm just trying to do the intro, and you're just just shoulder giggling on the bottom of the screen. We were talking about what we're gonna do today, and it seems like we're gonna do a monster menagerie. We've done something like this before. It's been a very long time. We're gonna come up with 5, 6, 7 monsters rapid fire that all share a theme and are made for one or two of the tiers of play, which I think should be pretty fun. All three of us should have a concept. And just as a reminder, Tier 1, beginning adventurers working in the local area, is levels 1 through 4. Tier 2, adventurers starting to move into larger areas, starting to help barons and other sort of liege lords of the area, is levels 5 through 10. Tier 3, you're saving cities, you're saving regions, you're important figures in the world, levels 11 through 16. And Tier 4, saviors of the multiverse. You're saving the world, you're saving other planes, you're going to the Feywild, you're going to the Nine Hells. That's level 17 through 20. That's the big leagues. Most campaigns never get there, so if we make a monster for that, we're gonna definitely be sort of free-floating a little bit as we try to make that. So, number one, what are our themes? I'm going to get started, and then Michael, and then Spencer is going to read those up last. We'll vote, and if we can't vote, we're going to roll to decide whose we do. Mine is titled Law and Chaos Outworlders. I think it'd be really fun to try to do the planar primordial forces of law and chaos. A couple of each I think would be really fun. The kind of monsters, though, the kinds of creatures that are antagonistic to the primaterial plane. If they show up, it's like, nah! It's not Modrons that are like, I'm gonna clean the dishes. Like something with a little bit more punch. Michael, what you got?
All right, Ethan, I think you'll like this.
I'm sure I will.
It's origami monsters.
Origami monsters, that'd be fun.
Or origami monsters, or paper monsters.
Yeah, like paper folding and paper monsters. That could be pretty fun.
Exactly.
Spencer, you're up.
So mine is titled, Oops, I Got Reincarnated into a D&D World Starting Town. So it's an isekai genre. No, it's basically starting town monsters.
Oh, that's fun.
So instead of making everybody fight a goblin and a rat,
yeah, there you go,
we would make new shit.
Alternatives to kobolds. Volume 1. Okay, so we've got a lot of really strong ones. Spencer's obviously would be all tier 1, all levels 1 through 4. Michael's, yours could really go any direction, and mine would be pretty hard locked, probably at tier 2 and above, probably mostly in tier 3. So definitely different areas. I like them all. Do we have any strong feelings among the group? Is anybody liking any of the others particularly strongly? I will say I think Spencer sounds really interesting. Making low-level monsters is hard, and that's kind of fun, right? I want to invite a little challenge into the space, but what are we thinking?
The only reason I would push against mine, and I know that it's the thing that I pitched, is we have created a fair amount of low-level, like up to CR2 monsters through our other adventures. So if we're looking to diversify our portfolio, I would probably go for something more like yours, where we can have a wider range. And yeah, so my vote is for yours, Ethan. I think that's one I would like to work on the most.
Okay.
I like all of them.
Any other votes in the room? Do we want to roll for it? What are we thinking?
My dog's eating my jacket. Give me 1 second.
Your jacket? Okay, it's kind of fun, I guess. Eating his jacket. Now, here's the question: do you think there's damage, or do you think he's chewing a jacket?
I think I know the dog pretty well. He's not really a chewer. Like he's not like an eater. He's like a mouther. Like
Oh no.
he finds like textures that he likes in his mouth, and he's just like ah.
Oh, wild. How's the jacket? Did we save it? Oh, muted.
You are muted.
He was biting the jacket to move it to make a bed. He wasn't eating it, so he's all good. He's just laying on it right now. Good boy.
All right, Spencer votes for Law and Chaos Outworlders. And I'm going to vote
Who
for
else?
my own. So let's get it a go. We're almost
There you
15
go.
minutes in. Let's just
Cool.
roll.
We're in.
Let's get rolling. All right. Law and Chaos Outworlders, Tier 1 out. Tier 4. I mean, no one plays in Tier 4. So we've got choices here. We can either do some Tier 2, some Tier 3, and maybe one Tier 4 monster to round things out. Or we can stick to Tiers 2 and 3. I don't want to do a bunch of Tier 4 monsters. That's probably not my preference. What are we thinking? What weight class do we want to punch in?
I think tier 2 and 3.
I like the idea of having one tier 4.
Okay.
So let's do-
I was-
Let's do tiers 2 and 3, and then let's save one spot for a tier 4 heavy hitter to throw in at the end.
Mhm.
Okay. First thing. So if that's the case, let's go with the classic, exactly like we did for our last product like this. We're gonna do 3 tier 2s, 2 tier 3s, and 1 tier 4. I think that should give us just enough guardrail that we're not too worried about, wandering off into some obscure corner here. Let me divide up my page. Do you guys have any early thoughts, any early inclinations, things you like? Monsters, creatures, or other, for anybody just catching us now, so we're going to do a monster menagerie. We're going to make 6 monsters, and they're going to be law and chaos themed creatures that would belong in the outer planes. Do we have any favorite monsters, books, tropes that have to do with this? Is there anything that we really enjoy?
I think that it will be interesting. One of my favorite ones is the absolutist law, where it's just some being that does pure judgment and will wipe out anything that isn't viewed as purely lawful or purely anything else. So this thing isn't evil, it's just truly lawful. And I think that that's always fun. I think that's one of your favored tropes for lawful as well. So I think that something in that vein would be fun.
I really enjoy a celestial who is so far divorced from the realities of the world that they just cannot grasp it. That, the morality of our world just doesn't make sense, right? Because I think of it as they would think of us the way that we think of slads, which, for those of you who don't know, slads are these horrible frog chaos creatures from the realm of eternal chaos that are basically the aliens from Alien. They're horrifying. And they're beings of pure chaos, right? The way we look at them is how a being of pure law would look at us. They would be revolted, you know what I mean? So I like that in all directions. I think it's very fun. I like the idea that we're as incompatible with devils as they are with us. There's a temptation to say humans are the middle, and that's just so fucking snoozerific. That's nothing. I much prefer a strong choice to any version of the middle. So I definitely agree with you. That is one of my favorite tropes.
The name that I'm going to pitch for this creature or creatures would be Adjudicators or the Adjudicator.
Adjudicators or the Adjudicator. That's fun. Might be a great tier 2 introduction to a realm, or tier 3 lieutenant. I am in charge of this building kind of thing. I think it could work really well in either spot. Let me get that down on the sheet of paper. I don't want to forget it. Michael, do you have any favorite tropes in this area?
Kinda. It's kind of the very first thing, and we've kind of done this. So I'm thinking of how to redo it in a different way.
That's half a DMing right there. Talk about demystifying the DMing process, being like, we already did dragons. Like,
how do we do dragons again?
this
But
one's got a
different?
sword in its mouth. I don't know.
Wild magic. I feel is like the epitome of chaos.
Yeah.
But we've already done a pretty big bad guy of that's a wild magic user. So it's not wild magic, but
I
it
mean,
could be something else.
Wild magic's a nice,
wild-
wide, encapsulating
Mhm.
thing. I mean, that's not, no need to shy away just for the vibes. I mean, if we're talking about highly magical, highly chaotic creatures, I mean, I always love the idea of, I'm reading a little bit of Terry Pratchett right now, so this isn't surprising. A spell that has come to life, will of its own kind of thing, right? So maybe instead of a wild magic sorcerer, this could be wild magic, like in a what happens when enough wild magic gets into the same spot.
An arcane stallion.
Yeah. It's magic in a bottle.
Oh wait, what's the word? Is it Mustang? Is that a wild horse? An arcane Mustang.
Arcane Mustang goes crazy. Yeah, I love that idea. One of my favorite early pieces of lore is everybody in the Forgotten Realms. It might be Dragonlance, I don't know. It's everybody knows the most powerful spell in the world, and it is to throw your hands to the sky and say, magic, do as you will. Magic without your rules and regulations to make it safe is the strongest force in the multiverse. It is human limitation is why we have first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and so on level spells. Is so that you don't die every time you cast a spell. So I love that. I like the wild magic, and I like the idea of maybe leaning it a little bit, right? Focusing more on the magic than on the, the 5e class that we would want to, get a little healthy distance from anyways. Who knows what they're going to change in 5.5? Could be boring magic, could be tame magic. Yeah, absolutely.
Wizards, am I right?
On my end, Spencer scooped my main one super hard, which is hilarious.
Hey.
No, hey, it's all good. It's all good. I love a creature that is so lawful it cannot exist in the world. Just as much as I love a creature so chaotic that it doesn't understand life, I love a fairy who thinks if you die, it's really funny. Because they are like, when's he coming back? And you're like, oh, you're like, he's not. That's not part of it. Other things, I like the idea of chaos as something that wants to win. I like the opposite of the Joker. Right, the Joker is this, like, he's chaos for chaos's sake, blah, blah, blah. I liked the Joker better when he was a clown that wanted to rob a bank. I like chaos that wants to win, that doesn't just want to, like, burn down the town and pee on the ashes. Of chaos that's like, I'm going to take over the multiverse. The multiverse will be ruled by chaos is more fun to me than Demogorgon, who wants to eat the entire universe. That's Demogorgon's plan, is to eat the entire universe. And then they say that his two heads will eat each other, and that's how the world's going to end. That's in the Forgotten Realms books. That's like one of the prophesized ends of the world. I like evil. I like chaos that wants to win. It's fun.
So it sounds like it's chaos for a point, and what comes to mind for that is like, I'll say Loki, the trickster god, is like. I feel is a very good chaos for a point.
Yeah, I think there's some real fun there. My mind immediately goes to, of all things, Corellin, the Lord of the Feywild who abandoned the elves after they betrayed him with Lolth. The thought that Corellin would come back and be like, I want to break cause and effect. And you're like, oh yeah, he's the Feywild god. Like, having that moment where it's like, oh, and that's your good thing? And he'd be like, yes. And you're like, I don't want that. Like, that sounds...
He's like, no repercussions. Ever.
Yeah, somebody said something a lot like this on a D20, on a Dimension 20 show, where they were like, you can never trust a rich person who loves luck, because a rich person is like random chance, like winning the lottery, instead of a normal person who's like random chance, like getting hit by a car. You have that sort of frame. So that would be pretty fun. Okay, we got a couple of ideas kicking around. I finally have my page divided here. Michael, what's up?
I was gonna say another law one, and it's making it a little bit more meta, I guess, because it's hard to get like more than like letter of the law. We have like laws of nature, laws of physics, Newtonian laws, laws of
I love
gravity.
that. That's great. Law. You know what's funny is we did the opposite of that in Prospect.
Yeah, we did.
We have like angels who represent laws, and then we have demons who represent concepts and are awful and scary. And so we have like the demon of law and stuff like that, which is pretty fun. Okay.
I do have one more as well.
Sure. What's up?
And I feel like in D&D and a lot of these fantasy games, there's a lot of emphasis put on contracts.
Yeah.
Contracts with patrons, contracts between NPCs and players, etc. I think having some being that arbiters those, right? If you break a contract or a certain type of contract or break one that's important enough, this thing will appear that you'll have to combat, essentially. It's a single combat to get out of your contract.
Now we have to be careful because there already is one.
Really?
Chapter and verse of what you are talking about. I am about to introduce you to a D&D monster that I've brought to our show before. Funnily enough, they are oh no, my D&D Beyond needs to update.
No.
Oh god, their name starts with an M. They're from the plane of law, and they are enforcers of great and important contracts. And their most substantial feat is that they are so perfectly in tune with the universe that they always hit. They do not roll to hit. All their hits are automatic and automatically do average damage, which I do find pretty great. Let me see if I can find the name, because I unfortunately can't pull it up. I'm running our stream, but Spencer, you could, and maybe highlight some of the.
Well, we're looking up that. Another idea I had, take it or leave it. It's for chaos. I think one of the most chaotic things in games is like deck of many things.
That is true.
Personifying that could be an interesting thought.
A deck master.
Yeah, so like a deck of many things. I would love to shout out to a little piece of online home brewery that Spencer and I have loved for many long years, the Grog of Substantial Whimsy.
Love Grog.
We used to have a lot of fun joking around about all of the stuff that could do. If you haven't looked it up before, it's straight up homebrew content. It's online.
Good
somewhere.
homebrew.
If you look it up, it'll be something. Yeah, I mean, I do wonder what the overarching vibe there is.
Is it the Marut that you're talking about?
I am talking about the Marut. You beat me to it.
Maruts are one of the types of inevitables whose purpose was to enforce the inevitability of death, and sometimes the terms of certain contracts.
Yeah, and that's what the golden plate on their chest is. Their multi-attack is Unerring Slam, automatic hit, 60 force damage.
They target anyone who's trying to use unnatural methods to extend their existence, such as by lichdom. You'd think there'd be less liches.
Yeah. I mean, so the Marut kind of does. I guess I gotta be honest, I didn't realize how non-contract focused that was. Yeah, I mean, if I think about a creature whose job it is to uphold contracts, my first thought is like a Devil of the Nine Hells, whose job is to be impartial, like a barrister of the Nine Hells, who's like, I serve no city, I am sworn to the many contract. Basically, like a paladin whose oath is to the many contracts and laws of a place. I think that could be really fun. The thought of a devil, Bone Devil, blah 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 devil, blah 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 devil, a law devil, a devil that upholds the law regardless of who breaks it. Right? The thought that and it would be very fun because the thing they'd be able to target is somebody who breaks a contract. Because that would let them, sort of come to grips with Asmodeus, right? If in the right situation, because they would be like, they gain such power over you.
the Fae hate him because he's very anti-loophole.
Yeah, exactly. Very spirit and letter kind of guy. I like that. First inclination before we keep moving, one of the abilities that it would have that wouldn't be super useful against PCs, but would be very flavorful and interesting if somebody is min-maxed, is if they target a creature who has broken a contract, they can choose to use that creature's spell save DC. Could be very fun, so that you can turn their own power against them for larger and more intimidating fights. Okay, so we have 5 concepts on the board for 6 concepts now on the board for our 6 slots. So we can do all of them if we want to try. Our options we've come up with, a little brainstorming session here thus far: an arbiter of contracts, a chaotic force that is looking to win, not just fight, a concept of law formed into reality, some kind of wild magic manifestation that is a being of arcane chaos, adjudicators of the law in a celestial multiversal way. Ironically, this was never streamed, which is a tragedy. Spencer runs a really fun series of one-shots where we play interplanar investigators solving crimes, and this made me think of that because I love that game. And a deck of many things, or something to do with that campaign-breaking random item. I think that could be really fun. The deck of many things is mildly to moderately trademarked, so we are probably going to have to do a drink that makes something happen instead of a deck of tarot cards. But Michael, what's up?
I was just saying, everyone say hello to Jessica Arts.
Welcome.
She just followed.
Very.
Thank you very much. And she asked, "How are we?" We're doing awesome. We're having
Feeling
fun,
good.
making some monsters, and we hope that you're doing just as well.
So we're first dealing with this sort of low level, lower tier, right? We're dealing with monsters meant to fight, characters levels 5 through 10. Now that puts us CR wise, I mean, it really depends. If we're going to be fighting a bunch of them, it actually puts us quite low, because we want to be able to sort of build a good roster. If they're going to be fairly high, I'm a big believer that if your party is level 5 through 10, that cap CR is like 8 through 14. I've learned not to doubt my players' abilities when it comes to... Anytime they're fighting 1 or 2 things, punch it up, but don't give them too much. Just don't make it squishy. No one likes a bullet sponge. So which of these ideas do we think is best suited, or which 3, to tier 2? To adventurers who have moved on from local inns and taverns and are starting to protect, cities, villages, regions, counties, baronies.
The Arcane Mustang, number 1. That, I see it being paired well with like a wizard of some sort, or a group of spellcasters, and having this be their bruiser. It's something that can soak up damage. It probably has resistance to non-magical slashing damage and piercing damage, etc., and can go up and do touch-based damage. Essentially like a minor version of a fireball every time it touches you. Like, it gets in contact, you get hit by it, you get burned, or arcane damage.
Yeah, so like an arcane elemental.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not so much a spellcaster, but something that uses arcane the way that an earth elemental uses stone. I like that. I think that's very interesting. I like the idea that it can like ride or trace magic, something like that. The thought that this is a creature that you can send after a caster is extremely fun, right? Something that can just like eat magic like a black hole. Sounds pretty tight. So we have this like... Oh, Michael, did you have something?
Oh, no.
On my camera, it looked like you raised your hand. No worries at all. So,
no.
we have wild magic creature. Spencer likes the idea of Mustang, and we like it as the idea of a bruiser that reinforces the more pedestrian members of the party. I like that very much. I think that's very fun. Do we want it to be a horse? Is the whole... I can't remember how the horse thing started. Is it a horse?
It's a Mustang because
wild
it's wild.
magic. It's wild, so I was thinking Arcane Mustang.
Yeah, We call it the arcane stang. No. I don't hate the idea that it is a horse.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, I
horse
don't-
adjacent.
I don't dislike it. I have no issue with it. If we wanted to lean it to being a little bit of a more proficient combatant as far as D&D is concerned, we should lean centaur. You know what I mean? Something like
Give
that
it some
might
hands.
be a little straight. Yeah, you gotta give them. If there's a
Give it
doorway,
some hands.
they need. What's the
Yeah.
horse gonna do?
Is it a centang?
That's,
No, Mustour. Yeah, I think we do angle that way with our millions of dollars in revenue. We hire an artist who can really show off our wild magic Mustang Centaur. But yeah, I think that's the vibe.
So this is a constructed creature. It is born of the magic of many casters working in concert, or is sort of harnessed by them. Maybe it's even attracted to where they are working, because this is a force of like pure magical chaos. Now, nothing about what we have described as chaotic. What makes, is it temperamental? Is it hard to control? Is it, what about it serves the, right? Because we're D20 fantasy. So what about it serves the forces of chaos, right? Chaos is a ladder. Chaos is a rope in D&D, pulling the multiverse in its direction at all times, trying to knock the wheel off of its axis. So how does this thing serve that? How does this thing want to tear the world down? One of my first thoughts is it is kind of it tears holes in reality as it jumps. If we wanted it to be a fucking horse, it could be a plains hopping horse that leaves behind these tears, and so every time you move, you are damaging the plane at the place where you step through. And some selfish archwizard doesn't care. They just keep using it because it's good for getting, I don't know, mushrooms. What do archwizards go to the Feywild for?
Mostly mushrooms, I hear. I think I like that. My initial idea was that, in the vein of it being a Mustang, would be it is not controllable. It's a thing that is summoned through the use of these wild magics, and they can keep it locked up and then throw it out into battle, but they can't command it.
Okay.
So if you pull one of those casters in with you, it will also fuck up that caster.
All right, so what's our Pokeball? Come on, I'm in. We're done. We're good.
Yeah.
What's the Pokeball? What keeps this thing locked up? I've done something like this before, where it's like a giant Iron Maiden that Spencer knows I have a long running faction of anti-magic religious folks that I use in different groups when I play with them for the first time, because it's always a hit. And when I played for a local library, it was an Iron Maiden that you could strap a wizard into, and they would power it. And it was just a construct that would just power itself on people. And so that was kind of a fun thing. So what's the thing? Are we fighting it while it is bound, or is it clink, whoop, run, and they turn and go the other way?
I think it's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first thought I had for what's its Pokeball, a bag of holding.
They just rip open a bag of holding and it leaps out.
I kind of like the idea of some version of a bag of holding where it's like, the only way you can hold something this chaotic is for there to be no seam, no edge, no gap. And so it is, a pearl. It is a canvas bag with no opening. Something like
and
that.
It's gotta be ripped open for it to appear.
Yeah.
I think that's cool, because it also denies the party having access to whatever that item is. They see it and go, that's really cool, but they don't get a D&D Pokeball that they can throw at someone and capture them. So I like that.
Okay, so
No way, I like the idea.
No.
Yeah, that's because you're a player, so you don't get a vote on this one.
Okay, so it's a single-use item that evil casters will use, and they can... So the most important second question that tells us a lot about the monster, do they go catch it? Or do they, pump their excess magic into this ball? Is it, is it like when a group of casters, evil sort of like bandit oriented casters, go to sleep at the end of the night, they each reach out and blast the rest of their spell slots into this thing, and it slowly builds a monster inside that in an emergency they can tear open and then run. It's something that they can just rip and then leave.
An idea. I don't know if this is a thing, so tell me if it is or isn't. Is there a dreamscape? Is there a dream plane?
It's so important for us to remember that we actually don't need to create things for the Forgotten Realms. So, Michael,
Cool.
Sure, there's a plane of dreams.
You might have to. Dreams are chaotic. They're only found in dreams. You have to catch it in a dream.
I am going to pull back from that. I'm going to say they shoot all their spell slots into this bag and then it creates a monster. But we do need to make a dream being that is one of the enemies. I don't know if I can name any dream being enemies off rip from the bestiary. Ethan, do you know?
Night hags can invade nightmares and dreams.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other monsters and creatures that target sleeping creatures and can force them into dreams. Green hags can do some illusory work like that, but night hags are the only ones that I'm like really familiar with. They can possess a sleeping creature and force them to have dreams.
I want it to be a monster that exists in the dream world and does not in fact exist in the waking world.
A real
sort of flipping the night hag.
Yeah, that's fun. That's really interesting. Kind of a
a boogeyman almost.
Yeah, you're a boogeyman. Exactly. And then when you're awake, you see it like in the corner of your eye. It's a thing. You're fighting something. You see the thing in front of you, and then it goes away. It's a cool thing to seed in your adventures. So
that's super
we
great.
can build that.
So it's
Cool.
a single-use item. You pump extra magic slots into it, and the result eventually is one of these things. So this always happens if you put enough excess magic somewhere. So these creatures probably do also occur naturally. I love the idea that there's a big arcane disaster, and these things are a problem after the fact, right? So this is something that the world... That means they get to make a check. That means it's not a weird thing you'll only run into every once in a while. That means it's something that is in a couple of textbooks and a couple of a couple of bestiaries. So it is this wild magic construct that is released and created by pumping magic into a condensed space. You make your little Hadron Collider, and then in an emergency you break it or you tear it. As a dungeon master, my instinct is the eternal classic. I've done it to you guys a lot with different bad guys. It's the "we's all fucked now" rip. Like, they're on the ground, they have 1 HP left. I spent the last turn telling you that you can tell they have something up their sleeve, and to kill them before their turn comes up. The party fails to, and he goes, "We's all fucked now," and rips the bag open and is immediately killed as this monster arrives and scooshes him. So that's great. I like that it is a bruiser, right? The characters are going to be thinking. It's a nice subversion, right? They're expecting this magical monster to be flinging spells, and instead it's slamming into the ground, and it just the slams sometimes do force damage or poison damage or something silly like that. I think that's solid. What are some other... How are we doing on time? We're getting to the point where we need to move on to the next ones. These are our last couple of thoughts. And this is enough to build a monster off of. This is enough to run a monster. If you know your CRs well enough and you're like, yeah, he has like a +5. You can
eyeball the HP and you're good.
That's the best thing I can recommend about just becoming familiar with not the table. The table doesn't mean anything. With like the actual monsters, is you can be like, it's got like a +6. You can run some of those combats really loose. Is there anything else that we think is really central to the way we want this thing to work? I always think magic immunity is kind of boring. There's nothing fun about the Rakshasa's ability to only be affected by levels 5 and above spells. It's just, I cast a level 4 spell. It doesn't work. Nothing fun just happened. So what's the fun version?
Magic Reflect.
You take half of the damage you dish out using magic. I think that's interesting. I think we're at a tier where that includes magic weapons. So the fighter with his magic sword, Talon or whatever, swings it, and he also gets reflected damage, is cool. My thought was to do it's resistant to everything. Non-magical stuff doesn't hit it because it's made out of arcane energy. Arcane energy doesn't really hit it because it's arcane, so of course it doesn't do anything. Poison doesn't do anything. It's not like a real monster. It's a thing of energy. So I think it would be resistant to everything. I kind of like magic reflection. When it takes damage from magical means, you get reflected back a certain percentage of that damage. Is cool.
I think I want it to have to use HP to use some of its abilities. Because it's made out of the magic that it's using to
and
fight.
It's slowly dissipating. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
I like
does it get health back when you hit it with magic?
That's interesting. It gains like 1/4. That's too much math. It's hard math-wise to do it. Yeah, but I like the idea that it dissipates, right? That this isn't a permanent creature. Because it doesn't make any sense. It's using the magic it's made up of to cast and fight. So it should be running out as things continue. So
I'm cool. It's a fun, unique idea.
HP drain abilities, I think, would be really fun. As far as naming this thing, like... It should have a big arcane Latin ass like Ars Magica name, but I do think a solid colloquial name for these is Magic Mustangs.
Yeah,
because it's a completely unbridled and uncooperative source of magic that is still helpful, and so it's like you can go buy a Magic Mustang and it is a metal ball that you can dump extra spell slots into to make one of these, and they just warn you like, hey, don't be near it when it does that.
I think it's cool because if we were building this out a lot, it would be tiered. Oh, come get your Magic Mustang, or 10 gold pieces. You buy it and it's like this. The thing when you bust open the back is like this big. It's like essentially summoning a wolf in combat. You can deal with it pretty easily. You can deal with a bandit or two, but then you pump more energy into it, or you spend more gold pieces on one of the Magic Mustangs, and now we're talking about like a sizable monster. Then it's like 1,000 gold pieces in 6 months of time in an arcane tower, and you've got a full elemental. I think is cool.
As a GM, if I was going to apply this monster to the world, I would quickly be like, what does this mean for a local military? And what it means to me is level 5 wizards who got military contracts sitting in a room with a big tray of unfilled ones and a big empty tray and going, bah, bah, and just blasting spell slots into them and handing them down an assembly line. As they're just making these things that you can send a flyer, send a kite, send a pigeon with one of them over the enemy lines and just woo, and then they fly back.
If this were in my world, I'm already like, what would the villain in a campaign where that's sort of the centered thing be? What other things? Like, are they pumping with different kinds of magic and a different thing is summoned? That's super cool. My ranger has one of these things bridled. It's its companion. Like, it is pretty sick. I like this monster.
Yeah. A name suggestion for the technical terminology.
Yeah.
Arcanist Quagmire.
Ooh.
I don't hate it. That's nice.
Quagmire. Definitions. Bulgaria land gives way underfoot. Or what I was looking at was an awkward, complex, or hazardous situation.
Quagmire. Arcanist Quagmire.
We're getting into a Family Guy zone that I just don't know if I can stay in with you guys.
Fuck Family Guy for taking the word Quagmire and saying that's going to be our character's name. Why? Why?
There's a version of this where it's Arcanist's Folly, because I like the idea that if you fuck up making a magic item, you can end up with one of these. You can end up just blasting a bunch of magic into a random item and it doesn't work and you end up with one of these. It's extremely funny.
I've got another wordplay and it's an Arcanist Foley, because a foal is a baby horse.
I'll tell you what. Okay, we've got both of those. All right, cool. I should have caught us.
We let this one fly, but it was also very interesting.
No, we're still on schedule. Assuming we never remember to talk about this before stream. Are we 9:30 or 10 this evening, gentlemen?
9:30.
9:30. Okay, then we actually do need to pick up the pace a little bit.
Alright.
Okay, speed round. Let's get through the rest of tier 2 in under 10 minutes.
Easy.
We
Alright.
have done Wild Magic Chaos. We retain Adjudicators, Deck of Many Things, Contract Arbiter, Chaos That Wants to Win, and a Concept of Law. I don't think Concept of Law is tier 2.
We
what do
also
think?
have the idea for the Dream Monster.
Ah, yes, and a Dream Monster. A Dream Walker. What are we thinking? What stands out?
Dream Monster can definitely be tier 2. I
Okay.
think the Adjudicator needs to be high on that list. I don't think he can be a 2. So I don't know what the next tier 2 will be. The deck master, or the
Yeah, that
deck
could be
of
a
many
tier
things
2.
thing could be a tier 2.
Okay.
Still a
So,
lot of chaos ones in tier 2.
which makes
Which
sense.
makes sense.
Dreamwalker.
Yep.
Is it aligned with the forces of law or the forces of chaos?
Michael had a good point. The dreams are inherently chaotic.
Okay.
It's just an amalgam of stuff in your mind.
Is this... I'm tempted to say that this is, like... something that is imagined in too much definition, right? You have a dream that's too vivid, and one of these is the result. Something that is so accurate that it becomes too real to stop existing, and so when you wake up, it stays. It stays in the
Sort of
dream plane.
a beholder adjacent creating.
Yeah,
from
yeah,
nothing.
exactly. Something that you dream it with such clarity that it crystallizes, and when you wake up, it is left autonomous in the dream plane, which we're probably just going to call the dreaming or something for now.
Yeah. I love that, and I am going to pitch something else, and it's not because I don't like your idea. I think it's actually very, very good. My pitch was this would be for the lineages and classes that don't need to sleep. Everything should be sleeping. Everything needs that time of rest. This thing is created through your lack of letting your memories and things build in your dreamscape. It appears in your mind, and then you are forced into sleep. So you're an elf that doesn't sleep. You don't go so long without it. Eventually, you will be knocked into that. And you'll have to deal with this creature.
Pilot fish, moth. What? Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. I'm seeing the plane of dreams stretching out before you. We're seeing these like ghostly figures. These are people who are dreaming and wandering. The world radically changes around them and follows them as they move through the dream. And then we just see this purple light. It is a mind full of thoughts that never dreams. And things flit to it until there is enough that they become real, that they attach to the ideas drifting off this. So how much does this have to do with our non-dreamer? Is this a creature that goes after anyone who doesn't dream, or does this have something to do with the person not dreaming? Neither of those is better.
I think it goes with anybody who doesn't dream.
Great. So it is this, this.
It's a scavenger.
It is this stalker seeing all this energy that hasn't been used up. So it's sort of a dream vampire kind of thing. I love that, like a dream leech.
Dream vampire goes crazy.
It would suck, but I think it doles out exhaustions.
Oh,
Yeah, I
that's
think
pretty cool.
I think you can't sleep while a dream vampire is attached to you,
Mm.
and so there is a timer on it. You're stuck to a certain degree, which I think is very interesting. Okay, so we have. It is a dream walker. It goes after people who don't sleep. And it is kind of a dream vampire. It eats that force, that stuff, and it wants more until eventually it drags you whole into the dream when it does it. I think maybe you get pulled in, right? Maybe the dream you and the normal you in most people is nice and separate. But when you never sleep, they slowly start to drift to the center until eventually there's like no difference. And that makes it easier for this thing to go after you.
The flavor text would be like, and for many of the non-sleeping lineages, this is their first and last dream.
There you go.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So the only thing that we're sort of not covering here, we know that it is dealing with exhaustion. We know that it has a lot of these other things going on. How does it work in combat? Does it attack you alone? Is it part of a pack? Is it a assassin type creature that jumps out, attacks, and then tries to flee? What's its role? We know that the Magic Mustang is a brute, a character that is there to do an incredible amount of damage and then die. What does the Dream Walker, what does the Dream Vampire do? What is its role on the battlefield?
I see it as like an assassin.
Yeah.
And very again going with the dream, it flickers, it misty steps a good bit, I'd say.
Yeah, so it's got like dreamscape control. It can fade in and out, and it will attack you. It'll attack the back line pretty readily. So an assassin, I think, makes perfect sense.
Oh, you know what would be really fun? Super huge pain in the ass, but I think actually kind of tight. If one of its abilities is to grab someone and drag them into the realm of dreams, and so one person gets separated, and the rest of the party's like, and needs to do something to get to where they are.
Yeah, that's really cool. Wizard, cast sleep, quick!
Yeah, exactly. All right. So now, what is this? So let's start very simply. We want to do the Deck of Many Things concept. The Deck of Many Things is proprietary. What randomized magic item do we want to do? How is it random, and what does it do, right? We have one of these items that exists in the canon of TTRP Guy. It is, if you remember, it is the Rambler's Dice. The Rambler is our luck devil, who we came up with 100 years ago, and you can take the Rambler's Dice and do things. So we do have an item that kind of works like this, but obviously we already have the Rambler, so we don't necessarily need another one. So I guess if that is one that exists in our world, what is another? What is another item of chaos and change that exists in the world that we are presenting here?
You know those big spin wheels that people like do scams with, essentially, where it's like you could win a free trip to Hawaii, but you're actually gonna like win signing this piece of paper so we get your information. I think it's one of those. I think that this person or thing appears in towns across the world, and you have a chance of winning 1 million gold pieces or living forever or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, in the vein of like a Fey contract. You land on it, it happens. But there's also a chance that your soul is taken. Your firstborn is promised. There's like this good and bad side to spinning this wheel. But the people in a medieval fantasy setting are probably going to take that chance because their life sucks. So something like that, I think is interesting.
So we have the Wheel Master. You know, we have this creature of chaos that wants
the Wheel of Fortune. Wheel of well, I just had it. It's gone.
Here's mine. I think that the person's name is Woe. He brings his wheel.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
No joke. It says Wheel of Woe right there. Because, so for those of you who don't know, in Dungeons and Dragons, the great names of fate are Wheel and Woe. Wheel is good, Woe is bad. Because the spinning of the great wheel is important to the existence of the world. That is so funny. So it is Woe and his wheel. That's really great.
Woe and his wheel is so sick.
Yeah.
So is Woe? So it sounds to me like Woe. I was gonna say is Woe a Fae. I think Woe is a celestial.
Yeah.
I think Woe is just the concept. Is just like or is like I'm the concept of luck. Good luck or bad luck. Yep. Something.
Yeah.
I guess you will find out, won't you? Please spin this wheel.
Yeah, exactly. This is some bitch I would make rhyme. I'd make him rhyme.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we like that as... Well, I guess we don't really need to worry about that. It sounds to me like he's either a Celestial or a Fae. Either way, I think it's quite fun. So
I think Celestial's fun.
So Woe's a bad guy. That's important, right? The wheel
Yeah.
does as much good things as bad things, and giving somebody a chance to either save themselves or die horribly is inherently
It's
bad,
bad.
because it means you have the
Yeah.
power to just help. And instead you're like, but wouldn't it be fun? You know, if you could get turned, one of them is you turn inside out, you know what I mean? So what does Woe do? Does he mess with luck? Does he change fate and destiny? When you're fighting Woe, what's the problem?
You probably get a disadvantage on attack rolls against him or something like that.
Mm. Yeah, I think that I'm always so tempted to have it be something that changes through combat. Like the DM has to roll a d20 and one of these effects goes off. But it's a lot to keep track of, and I wouldn't want to run it as a DM. Where it's like, oh, you rolled a 17, the Woe rolled a 17. The 17 on the d20 table is everybody has disadvantage on their attacks against him.
No, it would be
Or-
if balance was something we didn't really care about. The funniest ability to give him would be when Woe is within 300 feet. You crit on a 20 through 15, and you fumble on a 5 through 1.
Oh, we're hitting Mario Party rules.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
hilarious.
Woe just makes it so that the crit range is 5 in both directions.
Honestly, I kind of think that's fun. I
It
think that's
is.
cool.
The danger with
Um,
fighting Woe isn't that Woe will survive and have a good time. If you kill Woe, he bamfs back to the celestial plane or whatever. It's that fighting Woe is swingy.
It's
that
wild.
It's not good for your health.
I
Yeah.
think if he gets to like the saving throw, he gets to spin his wheel to get health, like half health or full health back.
I love this Cuphead ass boss that we are putting in Dungeons and Dragons. I love this goober that we are
Oh, yeah.
throwing in this Final Fantasy VII boss that we're like, this will work in 5e. So we have a crit range. It can spin. I love the idea that like us being like, there are many ways to deal with with Woe and his wheel. We strongly recommend, if you have the Game of Life in your house, to go get the spinner. Like,
Right.
is extremely fun. I think that's great. Okay, so Woe and his wheel, he has a crit range. He can roll in reaction. He has reactions where he can roll and see what happens. I think that's great.
And if he's a boss, I would give him a layer action. When you attack Wheel or Woe, you enter into his domain, and the ground is one of those big spinny wheels. When he gets a layer action at the top of initiative, it like appears above you what the effect is because it lands on that with the big red plunger or whatever. I think is pretty sick. So he get to have layer actions if he's a big bad.
Yeah, and I like the idea. And what else I like about that is anytime you have a character who exists in the fiction and can do things like that, you have the fun where Woe doesn't care if Woe wins or loses. Woe just wants to have fun. So when Woe dies, they're like a little flip coin version of their wheel onto the ground, and you can do something with it. And it's Woe's gift. Woe wants it to be involved.
Very fun.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, I just looked over. We have say hello to
Worcestershire?
We'll go with Wirt for
What's
now.
up, Wirt? Wirt had
Hey, Wirt.
Wirt had a very fun couple of ideas. I'm sorry I missed this. So for our dream creature, I have no idea what is happening. Respect. But maybe it becomes real if you don't deal with it in your sleep. So it is something that you need to deal with it the night it appears.
And then that's cool.
And mayhaps Woe is out of balance. If there's good, there's bad. So good things that happen give him more powerful for evil. So every time you hit Woe gets a counter. Woe gets to build up these counters that can go either way. As such, the party must do evil to succeed. So the party can benefit by like slapping each other to get rid of the points. I think that's
Stealing candy from a baby, etc.
Okay,
know?
so I'll
If
add.
this is like a big bad, which I think it could be, like an actual adventure arc, it would be keeping track of that. What are you doing in town? Is your lawful good paladin doing bad stuff? It's gonna take away. I think it's very fun.
It's kind of like luck points. It gets to like collect them. I would definitely. I'm the kind of monster when I create monsters. I love a complicated monster. I'd be the guy that would be like, keep track of the number of points, and you can spend 5 points to use this ability, 3 points to use this ability, 1 point to use this ability, 10 points for the next ability to be an automatic crit. Something like that could be really fun. With that, we are right at the 10 mark. We have 40 minutes left, and our next 3 monsters are going to be a little bit heavier work. So we alas, goodbye, my beauties. These these tier 2 bad guys are pushed to the side. Welcome, one and all, to tier 3. A little bit meatier. These things can damage a city. These things can endanger a whole region. They change the political landscape enough that a lord is like, prithee, gold pieces. This is where you start to deal with, like, hefty dragons, like adult and ancient dragons, are in this tier 3 levels 11 through 16 range. What are our early inclinations as far as the adjudicator, the contract arbiter, the chaotic? I'm gonna have to cross off the chaos character that wants to win. We're gonna just have to. It doesn't fit as well, and we need to lighten our list up here a little bit, anyways. Contract arbiter, concept of law, adjudicator of law. So we have 3 law left. All the chaos were low tier, alas. Like if you cry every time. What are you guys thinking for tier 2?
I mean,
tier 3.
I think our best bet is to determine who our tier 4 is, and then let the rest rip.
One of our options on the list is a concept of law. I don't.
Yeah.
As much as I would like to
I-
say that it's one of the other things, I think the bad guy named like Kronos, Archon of Time. Like it's gotta be him,
it's gotta be
right?
him.
Yeah, it's Spencer's idea of law or my idea of law, I think.
Yeah. So I think that it's going to be the concept of law. It's that big one. And then the adjudicator will be essentially a lieutenant for that being. And then the lieutenant below that lieutenant would be the contract enforcer.
So
So this feels like a row of beings in that hierarchy.
we're
It's a
doing
Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
we're doing good.
A lawful Ponzi scheme.
Rolling wrong here. So we have this enforcer of contracts. This is something that when a contract is breached or broken, it emerges and appears to enforce it. And I know what would bring this creature into conflict with the party very easily, right? Somebody got tricked into making a deal and they found their way out and everything's great. Like everything's fine. That happens with PCs enough that I don't even think you really need an adventure hook. Just wait.
Just it'll happen.
If you have a warlock in the party, eventually they're going to find some noodly way to get out of their contract. And then this creature shows up and you guys are like, but it wasn't a fair contract. And this creature's like, it is a contract signed in ink. And that's all. And that's all it cares about. Thank you so much for the subscription, Wirt. In case you guys were curious, that remains the loudest noise in the entire world.
We
Can't find that setting. That noise is about 50 times louder than anything else that comes out of this computer. But
I think he's summoned via like the contract burning and him stepping through it.
Yeah, like a tether. Oh yeah, straight up going and appearing from a burn contract is sick. I like the idea that this will appear for like a paladin breaking their oath. It'll appear going against the contract for a warlock. It'll appear not fulfilling the contract to the letter for like a local noble. This thing can appear if the stakes are high enough. I think it's sick as hell.
So this is just a being that is assigned to the maintaining of contracts in general, of one contract? Are these creatures unique to the deal being struck? Or are they more general?
I think that for contracts of import, like world affecting contracts, they are innate. They're built in. And that includes things with like large planar deities and devils, etc. But I think that other people can write into the contract that if the terms are broken, this thing may appear. And I think that's a fun way to work it in, to be like, this can happen. A lot of contracts have that written in. that this is an enforcer.
Are we sticking with this being a devil?
Not necessarily. I'm okay either way.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking, if it's a devil, you just have to pay a couple of gold when you write that into your contract. Like, you have to pay royalties to the guild. It's a subscription service. You have to keep paying it to maintain.
That's fun.
I think it works really well with Devil. I think it'd be cool to put something on its head, though. Devil's been done very much with contracts.
Okay.
Is just be unique.
I
So
mean,
you think Celestial for the opposite, or are you thinking something else?
I don't know. Is there like an elemental that comes to mind for law?
There is something fun about it being a contract elemental. It is. It is
made out of paper.
Yeah, it is this. No, I think that the closest we could get with elemental, I think it would be fun maybe to do like, if an ink elemental or something like that. Something that his job is to maintain that which it was written on. As far as outside of that, celestial wise, I mean, it just being, Toraziath, Angel of Compacts, is fine. Like, that's right there.
Yeah.
And if it's something more than that, I think you could do something with the, like, I'm thinking of the, like, golden thread that ties things in a lot of mythology, right? Something that connects the two people in a way that cannot be severed.
Yeah, the unbreakable bond.
Yeah, I was almost thinking like it's a automaton sort of thing. It's hardwired into doing this, or
You're looking at like a big Modron. I got you.
Yeah.
Wirt has in with another cool concept here that I am a fan of. The being's existence is tied to the contract, so its need to protect the contract is self-preservation. If the contract ends, it dies.
It's a thing created through the signatures on the contract is pretty cool. So it's less of a named being and more of a contract demon
it
that
could
will be built in this moment.
If it was something like that, I would say it's the spirit of the two people that signed it. So it looks like the combo of the two people that signed the contract.
I like that. So it's like
and naming it like the spirit of the law is pretty great.
I just wrote Spirit of Compact down in front of me.
Yep.
Right? It is the spirit of the contract. And so it doesn't show up when the contract snaps. It shows up when it starts to twist.
Yeah.
So it would be something that would try to interrupt you. I love the idea that this thing is like an imp at first.
Mm-hmm.
It's just mischievous at first. It's just trying to disrupt you. It's like, remember, like I love it's not. It's like a super evil version of the fairy from Legend of Zelda. It's like, remember Article 5 at first, and you're like, I hate that fucking thing.
Yeah, that's hilarious. And I like the idea that they're in whatever world you're developing for our friendly DMs and GMs, having there be like an ancient contract that goes back to the beginning of time between a god and the plane that they inhabit, and that contract imp is now a massive monstrosity that if somebody tries to end the plane, it will appear and do a massive amount of damage, or affect the compact in some way.
The Titan of Gravity, basically, right?
Yeah.
Being the agreement between the god that made the world and the god that made mortals to allow mortals to stay on its world. Like, that contract being this impossible mountain-sized creature is very cool. Okay, so it is a Spirit of Compact. It comes in a couple of different strengths and varieties. We need to re-up on the music. We're past our hour.
Oop. I'm back in.
And when you break the contract, when you're approaching breaking the contract, it arrives to protect it. So my question is this a pernicious and consistent terrorizer? Or is this, the last line of defense? Is this a fight that happens as the contract is about to break, as your dagger is about to pierce the heart of Gothril and make it so that technically he is dead and cannot have signed, like whatever shit you're doing, this thing like appears and you have one fight? Or is this a consistent annoying creature?
God, it's hard because the flavor of having it be a consistent annoying creature is great, and I would use that as a DM. But I think that usability-wise for publication, we would have to put that as like a little addendum. This is a thing that might interrupt throughout, but it's primarily meant as a boss fight while the contract is being broken. I think will work better in publication.
I'm writing my favorite thing I've ever written on a D&D page, which is Clippy element ?
Yeah.
It's like, Clippy, do you need oops, you were about to break your contract. Like,
better watch out.
What I think it is if one of these creatures is assigned, it can give negative bardics to people. Like, it can, you're like, when you roll charisma to convince the Baron to say that he doesn't know about this contract, this thing can be like, oops, and give you minus 1d6 just to be annoying.
Yeah, we're giving you a cursed item in the form of the initial contract.
And as you get closer to breaking it, you wake up and it's like on the other side of the glass outside your door, like, stop it.
Also, side note, shout out, what up, Eric Brandenburg? Thanks for joining in the stream.
Cute.
Just say your comment. Welcome in.
Oh, hello.
We're building like 6 monsters back to back to back to back.
We have an elemental made out of wild magic trapped in an item that can be used as a last ditch. Tear it open and run away and let it fight your enemies for you. We have a dream walker, sort of something that like tries to consume the energy coming off of creatures who cannot dream because of magic or something that they've done. We have Woe, the Lord of the Wheel, a kind of like fey creature that's messing with luck and fate. And we're just finishing up the Spirit of Compact, this little living spirit of a contract that wants to defend it because it is also defending its life by extension.
Marriage demons breaking the compact of marriage is pretty hilarious.
I am not a keep the party poor kind of DM, unfortunately. I get myself into trouble giving my parties a bunch of items all the time. I get excited about ideas and fun things that I see in books, and I put it on the next bad guy they see. Right? We have so many magic swords in our home game that, no joke, Spencer has started giving them away to people.
I use them as gifts.
He's given away like 3. I can't help it. I read about a cool one and I'm like, you see that the evil necromancer's got to play? Like, right away, I can't. I fold like a cheap deck of cards. All right,
And
so
I'm not, because I can't think of expenses for the party on the fly. So they just stack up those bills like real. They got like 8 billion gold coins.
Okay, so we've got the broken you break the contract, and this thing that has been kind of fidgeting with you and trying to stop you from breaking it appears in full force to fight you. And I think, unfortunately, it is probably straight up and down. I don't think there is too much in the way of like wacky hijinks. I think this is a creature that attacks you just because you are the one that has broken its contract. I imagine it is somewhat desperate. I kind of like the idea that it is shockingly bestial and desperate. Like, you have this little imp that's like eyeing you, and then it finally breaks and it is like unleashed and is totally different, is a whole nother vibe. It's like a big hound with ink instead of drool dripping down the front of its teeth. It's like got smoke on its edges, as you can see the contract burning and breaking before you, this thing, and you're like, what's that? What the heck?
the hell?
And you're like, that's Clippy. And they're like, it can't be Clippy.
Now, does it stop time almost?
I was
it's
thinking
preserving time itself by trying to stop you, so time is stopped.
you're about to kill the other holder of the contract. It's time freezes, dagger falling, and it appears.
Yeah.
You try and stab, nothing happens on that thing.
I just can't. The visual of like that, and you just start to see like ink droplets fall,
and this thing like claw its way out of the contract in front of you is very good. Wirt has just said, have the magic items form a union and get revenge on the party for ignoring them.
Nobody can break. If somebody breaks a contract, we're all jumping in, boys. We're all going in
Get
there.
them! Yeah, no, hilarious. And also to deal with you guys having 6,000 magic swords.
Oh yeah.
Actually, honestly, the idea for some future Monster Menagerie stream of a super pissed off personality sword like Craven Edge in Critical Role or Black Razor in D&D that's just this incredibly angry dancing rapier that's like, I was abandoned and I will become the greatest fencer alive is me, and it's just an inanimate sword on the battlefield.
So good.
Okay.
One of my super early ideas for our monster, our board of enemies of contracts, was magical cooking utensils that were pissed off because their chef was just sucked.
It doesn't sharpen the knives enough. Bent all the fork tongs.
This
Yeah.
deeply and profoundly reverse Ratatouille that you have made, that is like, jump Linguini's ass! Like, if the rats kill Linguini and start, like, puppeting his body. Fantastic. All right, so I think that is this spirit of the contract pretty well taken care of. And I think we get an idea of this sort of monster form that it has. That's really cool. It's a nice way to engage. And the party can be hired by somebody who's like, I'm being chased, and it's by one of these things trying to save its deal.
Sure.
I think that's great. All right. Up next, is our first heavy hitter, the Adjudicator. Something that enforces the laws of the universe. Our next thing is one of the laws, which we should have time for. We kind of shaped up there. This is something that just enforces them, right? And we don't need to make a catch-all, right? Going too general is the same mistake that certain companies make. Don't be afraid to, narrow it down. So do we want sort of a generalist approach, or do we want to say, like, it enforces this group? Like, does it enforce the laws of civilization or the laws of nature, or...
I feel like it is almost a nuclear bomb. I think that enforces law. We'd have to define if it's like celestial law or if it's just the law of the land it's currently occupying. But I think that whatever its general is, this lieutenant, would be sent down to a location and would be tasked with essentially wiping everybody out by weaponizing the ideals of law.
Eric Brandenburg in the new edition wants to make a human rogue who's a bootlegger moonshiner. Thoughts? I think my thought is that that's awesome. Especially if that moonshine can function. If you have a cool GM and it can be like, can I buy Alchemist's Fire? Being able to sort of use it in that way could be really fun. Finding a way to like making stealth rolls that is you drunken mastering, being like, this is the bathroom, and it's a stealth check because you're pretending to be the other person, is something that I've let Spencer do shit like that a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the Adjudicator isn't, I misremembered this is not an enforcer of law. This is just like something that's meant to live on the plane of law and is good and useful there, and accidentally gets some idiot tries to summon, Tirael, the Lord of Light, and they're not strong enough, so they accidentally summon an Adjudicator, and it's like, oh no! And I think it has to be celestial law, because one of my all-time favorite concept for this is, because this is the sort of trope that even you said I am often gravitated towards, is something that is like, thou shalt not murder. And you're like, I've never killed anybody. And they'll be like, you crushed a bug on January 3rd. It
You
had
trod
a
upon an
family,
ant."
scumbag. And you're like, no!
A flaming blade rips him in half. Not murder. That was deserved.
That is vengeance. Yeah, exactly. Somebody who's like, when you were 9, your cousin said you could have 2 cups of water. You had 3, scumbag. Like, it's over.
Yeah.
Give me your hand. Okay,
And
so...
I think this could be an accidental summon, or it could be a Sodom and Gomorrah summon, where our next tier being goes, things are looking pretty rough down there. Adjudicator, go. And the adjudicator appears and goes, dead, dead, dead. And there's like 3 survivors in any town where this happens. And that's why you'd have to go up and deal with this big boss after the fact.
Great. So the adjudicator is either summoned on accident or is dropped on something by celestial forces. So this is kind of interesting, right? It would be sort of fun to have the players be in a morally dubious place. And it's like, yeah, they're still people. I don't care that this city is morally dubious. Like, just because it would be like if the 9 divines were like, we're gonna drop a bomb on Riften in Skyrim. You'd be like, there's normal people in Riften.
They have a thieves guild. Get rid of them.
Destroy.
Get rid of them.
Okay, so this thing is either summoned or placed, and it is this being of pure law and justice. What is that? It's difficult to walk that line of this thing feels like a celestial, but is not just an unfun AC-29 auto hit sponge, right? So how can we tap into that feeling that this is something that strong and aligned with the planes, but isn't just a drag to fight in a way that, I think of the ancient blue dragon is my ultimate example. It's like it can attack you from 100 feet in the air, and it never has a reason to land, and it has a spellcaster variant. And so it's like, oh, so fighting a blue dragon is getting sniped for 9 hours unless somebody took the one spell that makes flying creatures fall. Like, sometimes you got to be careful of that rules crunch that can turn it into a little bit of a mess. So how do we avoid that? What are the things that feel stronger, that feel like a more bold choice? My first thought is that, like, it can react to violence, so it can summon helpers, and then when you attack its helpers, it can be like, like it can react to people hurting the smaller things that it summons, like fragments of law, or what, a diocese, something like that.
I think that's cool. I like that because then it's not just a one-on-one fight against this thing. My pitch was going to be, when this thing appears, it just goes on a rampage, killing everything. But this would be a lore thing that would have to be revealed to the party to make this work. You can challenge it to a fight. It is a thing of honor and law being challenged to combat. It would fight you, and it would probably take on some form that is fightable.
That's
right?
fine.
So the party knows about this. It's a thing that's been seeded in the world, and they get to show up in a town that's being eviscerated, and they say, I and my party of heroic allies challenge you to a duel.
Catch you later.
And then it goes, great. Peace. Thanks for hanging.
It's funny, they just mentioned, they're probably about to hop, but they were talking about a deity that sees all life, and so it doesn't even know about humanity because it can see bugs and germs and disease. Actually, Nurgle from Warhammer 40k, the Lord of Life, is a terrible, disgusting bacteria chaos god, because he is the god of life, and the most common life in the world is bacteria. And so it is largely a god of poison and disease. So that's interesting. Great minds, right? So this thing, okay, so it is this rampaging creature, but you can say, like, I demand a trial by combat. I demand to champion the city, and it will then face you. You will have a duel. I think that's very cool. I don't even think we really need to shift the form too much. Something that I feel for the Emperor, yeah, Eric. Something that I feel very strongly. Whenever I see these creatures, I get this, like, I either want it to be a headsman or an archer, because there's just something so heavy metal about the, like, angel with the bow that just gets me every time. But also, I think it as a headsman makes a little bit more sense. And one of my favorite objects that has ever existed is there's this giant sword from the Crusades. I think it's a French sword that is flat
Oh yeah.
on the top because it's just made to be incredibly heavy so that it can cut heads off. And on the side of it, it says like, "May the swing of my sword send this sinner's whole soul to heaven." You know, it is this devastating historical item that I'm always a fan of. So if I can put a big flat topped Headman's greatsword in this thing's hands, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. And you defeat this thing, and you get to keep that sword.
It would probably be like Swords of Law or something like that.
And there could be a champion of a city that has that early on that you encounter, and it's like a huge flaming headsman sword. You're like, that thing's so cool. We're not going to kill him to get it, obviously. And you find out that he challenged this thing to a duel and won its blade, and now you get to do the same thing 10 levels later or whatever. Yeah. Huge.
Also, if the party is right at the top of tier 2, if they are level 16, you can just give them a Holy Avenger.
Yeah.
Like, we can make up an item, obviously, but it feels good to get to those levels where you can be like, yeah, sure, +3 Holy Avenger, have fun, kids. Like, you can kind of hand
flavor it. It's got the flat top. It's got words on the side. It's a Holy Avenger.
So we've got the Adjudicator. They summon or are placed, and they rampage mainly with this sword, just dishing out justice, and then they but you can't challenge them to a trial by combat. I like that they have, you know, these like minions and that little bit of social commentary here. Basically, they have an ability that lets them punish resisting arrest. Like, if you attack one of their minions, they can you know, react to you doing that in some great and terrible way. And what else? Is there anything major? We're just about to have to move on, but if we get like 1 or 2 other ideas out, we can rock those.
We've got a comment from Eric. Google Judicar model for 40K. It has a blade just like that.
Yeah, it does.
I'll give it a quick Google. Spencer or Michael, do you have any ideas sort of circling around this? We can get about 1 more on the field before we have to move on.
I don't think I have anything big for this one. Michael, what do you got?
The only thing, and it's very opposed to the headsman, but when I think law, I think shield. I don't know. There could be some spell that it can use for a shield.
Yeah, it could have the shield spell. It could be an improved shield spell, basically. I could see that.
It's also a celestial, so it can be like a sword and shield floating in the air, covered in eyes and fire. Like, it doesn't need to be a guy.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
True. I also think one more thing that I would add, potentially. I think lawful creatures have advantage, have bonus to attack, etc. Because something that is lawful going against this lawful being. I could see that being like a debate with fists, right? His law might conflict with your law, but it's going to encounter it on an even playing field. If you're chaotic, you're not going to do as much damage than if you're lawful.
Now, we have 13 minutes. Welcome to Tier 4. Put your glasses on.
Let's do it.
What cardinal concept of law lives in our world and can occasionally cause some whoopsie daisies by being a little too real, right? Is this the concept of time? You know what I mean? How high are we punching, or do we want to do like a factor of something? Is it, you know, the concept of seconds or something like that, right?
Have you guys heard of like the social Leviathan theory, something like that?
No, I'd love to.
Thomas
What's
Hobbes.
up?
So it's essentially Hobbes' Leviathan. It's an example of social contract theory, which states that people should give up their individual will and desires for the greater good. That's not a very good description of it, but I'm going to give a better breakdown, which is if you enter into the social contract of society, which we have all done by being functioning members of said society, there's a Leviathan waiting to kill you at any moment that you break that social contract. You kill somebody, you've broken that contract, Leviathan will get you. The long arm of the law will fall down upon you. You're going to be arrested forever. If you've broken that contract already, or society has broken that contract, Leviathan's broken that contract with you, you should, you have no more reason to side with Leviathan. Do everything in your power to escape whatever ramifications are heading your way. That's the Leviathan theory. It's like you've made a contract with this
So
thing that you
it's the
can't escape.
Leviathan.
Yeah, you're looking at the Leviathan.
I-
That's what I'm thinking is the inherent social contract of society being this thing.
I'm such a big fan of the high CR small monster. Why my brain is going to like a sheriff or town guard, like because that is how people would imagine the long arm of the law, and so that is how it would appear. It wouldn't appear as this giant. I think that maybe in its final form, it is a great wheel of scales and balance and fire. But when you encounter it normally in the world, it appears to you as a lawmaker, as a judge, as a barrister, as a as somebody who's there.
Super cool.
A celestial that takes cheating death as cheating. That's pretty good. Okay, so it's this idea of the Leviathan. So it is it's kind of the god of punishment then. It is like it's not the concept of law, it is the concept of the ramifications, consequences.
Yeah. And if we wanted to make it easy, we could just call it Leviathan, but we could come up with something else as well.
I like the idea that like it is all effect, no cause. It's weirdly making me think of all things, a stand from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which removes the cause but keeps the effect. So you can shoot somebody and take away the act of having shot, so they just have a bullet in them.
Yeah.
Which is kind of one of the more odd things in there. I think that's King Crimson. So we have the Leviathan. It is this concept of ramifications and effect. It appears as a law keeper and then eventually appears again as its true form. I kind of like the idea that this is sort of an odd kind of parallel to, of all things, Oriel, the Frost Maiden from the Icewind Dale adventure. I like the idea that the Leviathan is somewhere and that's the problem. Right, because this is tier 4. So this thing breaking into the world is how this adventure arc starts. This thing like shattering its way in is how everything begins. So there's like this part of the world or of the multiverse that this thing is declared itself king of, right? The Leviathan is tired of leaving mortals to their decisions and has decided to visit the will of the gods on them. I think that's pretty sick. Maybe as a consequence, maybe as a punishment for killing its adjudicator in the last tier right before this, it arrives to enforce law on its own.
It sounds like it has some sort of charm or mind control effect. It's taking the will away.
It's like dominate person.
Something that was in a lot of earlier editions that's really not used anymore that I retrofit a lot is I love monsters that have an aura that is like make a wisdom saving throw. If you are below CR 1/8, you automatically fail. You know what I mean? If you are
doesn't fail.
Yeah, if you have, or basically like power word order or power word ordain. Any creature that approaches it that has less than 25 HP just does as it commands. There's no save associated with it. You cannot resist it. You are not strong enough.
We got a comment from Jeff Teague here. Would its form be a crystal?
Yeah,
the idea of a crystal descending onto this town and just floating over the top of it is super evocative, and I think that's sick. We would have to make most of its abilities mental and like atmospheric, so things that are happening around it, instead of giving it a big sword, which is a go-to for a lot of D&D monsters. But I do think it's an interesting visual.
We can't give a big crystal a big sword?
Now,
it could be floating around it, yes.
A big monster writing note for me. I think it's a great idea to give this creature reactions that allow it to basically issue commands to the party to make them attack each other. I am not a big believer in full action multi-round charms because they basically say, I cast no fun on you and it lasts for 3 fucking rounds. I cast my greatest spell. You're not allowed to play. Which is, if you're meeting once a month to play with your buddies, let's not lock Jerry out for 3 rounds.
We have a question about it's a being of law. Can you appeal to a higher force of said law?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of GM fiat on how that works, but if you throw a tier 4 monster at a tier 3 party, you can sort of gesture to the fact that they need outside help. And so they need to go to, the lawbringer, whatever this god of law is, and say one of your agents is on the world visiting law, and need to make a case or something like that. Could be really fun.
They'll empower you. They will send out allies. That way, it's not done up in a charisma check with this lawbringer. It's still something you have to deal with, but you would be given boons, and that would be the adventure leading up to dealing with Leviathan or whatever this creature is.
So it has this reaction to emit commands. It has a large aura of domination that makes people do what it says if they are not strong enough to be sort of a worthy adversary. I think that's all great. It means you can drop it in a city full of people that the party likes and watch them sneak from house to house because they don't want to kill their friends. That's always great.
I could see this one having advantage or bonus damage against chaotic creatures of any type. So if you've got a chaotic neutral rogue, bad choice. Bad choice for this arc.
Something that I think would be hard, and I want to be very clear about this. I don't think this would be super easy, but I think would make this monster extremely interesting, is if it had some like 3 tenets it cannot break in combat or out of combat. Like there are 3 things it cannot do. The Leviathan cannot harm the innocent. It cannot, right? There are 3 things. And that way, as the party, if you've looked into the creature, if you've researched it, you have those things and you can try to be clever. You can try to force it into situations where it can't really do anything against the party. I don't know exactly what those 3 would be. I it cannot harm the innocent. It cannot, bind the faithful, and it can't whatever.
It's like the Paladin's oaths. So the Oath of the Ancients has the tenets of the Ancients. It would be the same thing with the tenets of the Leviathan.
It was making me think of Isaac Asimov's Rules of Robotics.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True.
2 things. First, if we want a multi-layer boss, because we're talking about oaths of the paladins, if we shatter it and break it, it turns into an oath broken whatever this is.
This thing would have the chaos monster equivalent of it, which is a fallen Leviathan that is shattered and is this storm of shards that follows you wherever you go. Eric hitting us with just bury the matter in injunctions and contingencies until you die, continuances until you die of old age.
That's the hero's way,
That's how legends do it. That's how legends do it.
And then the second thing, if we aren't married to the idea of a crystal, I love the idea of a crystal. The other thought I had was a massive tree that has roots all throughout the city. Kind of gapping the celestial world with the
and the massive tree. We already talked about that being my
we did, didn't we?
This is the most confusing thing to say to the poor people in DM writer's room. The real sentence is a massive tree. Spencer's DM truck nuts.
My truck nuts is a massive tree. Go watch our Elden Ring stream.
You have to.
Where we
this
talk
is
about
nonsense.
The gaudy things that we as DMs rely on in our games. Mine is putting a massive tree in every world.
God, Spencer loves a big tree.
The prime plane in the heavens. I do that every game.
I definitely like the idea, Michael, bare minimum, that there are these giant crystalline roots spreading through the ground like veins of iron, right? The world itself is being forced into structure, I think is cool. I like the idea that as you are running around alleyways, knowing this creature is in the city somewhere, you notice that, buildings that used to be crooked are now straight and plumb-bobbed with the ground. The blades of grass are all the same height. You know what I mean? You start to see this sort of unnatural centralization of law. Every breath feels the same. It feels like the same balance of oxygen, and you're being able to describe, like, you never noticed before that sometimes that's different until it is not different, and every breath is like, a perfect mixture of what we need. Great. So it's this creature that can dominate low HP things. It is very anti-chaos. It can reaction command. It spreads its influence and attempts to make a kingdom of law on the prime-material plane. And you can beseech a god of law to interfere, but there's no guarantee that it will do anything other than say, I give you leave to attack it. And you're like, thank you so much, bro. And I like the idea that it has a couple of rules it cannot break. And so it has to kind of bend around those rules, and you can try to employ them. We have time for one more, like, big... Is there a central ability? What I'm looking for is, what does this thing have instead of breathing fire? What does the great, boundless force of the social Leviathan that punishes those who step out of line, what can it do to you that isn't a 100-foot blast of lightning?
I mean, the first thing I think of
Immolate.
is... I mean, I was thinking like a mob attack. It has dominated all of the peasantry here, right? All the people in the town, the townsfolk. The townsfolk will attack you. It's innate. It's built in. You're trying to attack this thing, it will have them attack you. So I think that would be the thing. But I'm always slow to do that, because then people are going to have to kill innocent people, and that's not... The heroes will kill innocent people, and it's not very, very much fun. So, I don't know. That was my first instinct, but I don't like it.
Okay. Humility. I like it. Full circle, internal, like that. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of, Eric has just said, at this rate, you could distract it by causing a mess. That would be pretty funny. It'd be funny if, like, one of the things was if, as an action, you disrupt the order of the room around you or the space it is in, you can give it disadvantage on something, or, like, -1d4.
We got from Jeff sound harmonics. I think that's pretty cool, because harmonics are like a law of reality. It utilizing that as psychic damage that just reverberates. You can't get dominated because you're above a certain CR and you save that save, but it's doing this this damage to you constantly.
I like that. I like that cool. You feel the psychic presence of this perfectly ordered and rigid mind, and your stupid flesh hormone brain yeah, exactly. You take a boatload of psychic damage as it sort of encounters, unless you are a low CR thing, and then your mind is just snagged, you just get lost in the grid and become one of its sort of drones. I like that. Okay, so that is its area effect, is this, like, bane of the rigid mind, or unlawful bane, or whatever it is. This thing that crushes somebody that doesn't have the same structure. There's a creepypasta about somebody who, like, has themselves downloaded into a computer because they're dying, and discovers how painful it is to be in, like, a square and blocked and crystalline world as a creature that isn't meant to live there. How, like, every distracted thought registers as pain because it's something a computer would try to not do. That comes to mind when I think of this. Unfortunately, with that, it is 9:32. We are just past our time.
Our final note is this horrific body horror computer image.
So,
thanks, everyone.
We have these law and chaos creatures. We have the wild magic Mustang, which is this, last line of defense hand grenade to drop on the ground as you run out of the room. We have the Dreamwalker, this creature that wants to consume dreams. It sounds like so that it can be real, which I think is pretty tight. We have Woe and his wheel, being a spirit of the great wheel and woe of the world, who can visit its terrible luck on you as attacks. We have the Arbiter, the spirit of compacts, this living spirit of a contract that wants to preserve it so that it can survive. We have the Adjudicator, which is this summoned celestial revenger, kind of, somebody to visit justice on a place or on a person. But doing so by an unrealistic standard that cannot be met. And then we have the Leviathan, the great beast of ramifications. Oh, the great beast of judgment. There's definitely some really good fun there, which is this law-keeping crystalline creature that visits its own psychic perfection onto the world around it and demands that perfection of those around it, and you are sort of resisting that. So I think a pretty good day of penciling out some work here. So with that, I think we're going to bid you adieu. You can catch our streams. They're always at 7:30 p.m. They are Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. On Sundays, you can catch on Sundays, you can catch Game Master, Masters of Games, where currently we are playing Elden Ring. We just beat Methner, and we're going to move on and hopefully get through to the end of that DLC. After that, we don't really know. That's kind of Michael's fancy is what we do next there. Our Monday stream is The Party Makes Things Worse. Right now we're playing the Prince of Charming, a super fun Monster of the Week campaign that Spencer is running. In his classic tradition, he has already almost killed my character once because that's his favorite thing to do.
Only once.
So we'll see how that shakes out. That's been whipping up and getting really exciting. We all love Monster of the Week. And of course, Tuesdays is DM Writer's Room, where you can watch us try to demystify the DMing process a little bit. All the advice out there is like, keep a notebook, and isn't, here's how I come up with a stat block, here's how I come up with a monster. So we do that live, so that you can sort of watch us do it, interact with the way that we do it, throw ideas that we can try to fold in. Definitely check us out on TikTok and YouTube. That is Spencer's baby. He makes a lot of very fun and silly stuff on there. He's been hitting the TikTok pretty well right now. We've had the time to do so. You can check out our first adventure on Drive-Thru RPG. That's the Lich's Dollhouse. We're working on our next one, and we have a couple of other projects probably soon. So that's pretty exciting. That's got to be it, right?
That's it.
Oh my goodness. It is. We joke constantly about how hard it is to remember the 50 things that we do for this. All right. With that, we will catch you later on. See y'all on Sunday.
Peace out, gang.
Peace.